G'day, welcome back. They say the best way to learn is from other people's mistakes, not your own. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. This is actually a very quick follow-up to my previous video where I looked at the error rate of grandmasters in the end game, and we came to the conclusion actually in terms of that, is it a matter of technique? Strong grandmasters do make errors, but they make less errors than weaker players. Now, when I was going through that analysis, I came across a lot of extremely interesting games, fascinating games, which demonstrate pretty key points of, pawn endgames. And what I'm going to do before I've forgotten about it all is we're going to cover 3 of those games, which I found particularly interesting, and work out what the grandmasters did wrong and sort of try and understand, what the correct technique is. So as we go through this, 3 pretty good examples of studying king and pawn endgames. Okay, so going to the analysis screen, just for those who didn't see it, just to quickly remind you of what analysis I had done. First of all, you just scoutfish to screen for different king and pawn endgame combinations. And then when it got to a certain material balance, I then used the available table bases to say, oh, this is a win, this is a draw, and so on. And what I did is I stepped through move by move to the end of the game to work out if they played perfectly or the players made a mistake, which either a win turned to a draw or a draw turned into a loss. So I'm going to pick 3 examples which demonstrate each in turn a different important concept of king and pawn endgames. So this position, just let me everyone move forward. You can see it's 3 and 3, and now it is 3 versus 2. This position is drawn. Now I'll just play one more move. That was king g3. And now there is only one drawing move. Take a little time, have a look at the position, analyze it, and then after you've done that, let's continue. This just give you a bit of a hint, actually, while you're doing that. This shows the importance of counting. And this is a pawn race, so obviously the count of how many moves to a queen, and then often there's tricks in when the queen, is it with check and so on. But anyway, you have to bear that in mind. But this is an exercise in counting the number of moves to queen. So let's do the counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and of course the king's got to get out of the way. So that is 6 moves for white to queen, pawn. Okay, what about black? Pawn 1, 2, 3, 4. Since it is white to move, he needs to find one move so that he pawns just after the black pawn. Now, how do you find one move? I mean, in the game, white played king b5, and we'll just look at the game continuation. That's exactly what happened. Obviously, the pawn's too slow, and the win would be pawn moves there, queen check, moves there, queen takes pawn, then the queen will duck into the corner, come over and assist, or the second queen will be made. That is the continuation, king b5, played by white, which loses. So, as I said, you were missing one move. So this is amazing. It's also a thing about, at the end of the day, if one of your pawns is queening, use your other pawns to do whatever. It's just a fairly amazing move to draw. You can see it marked up there, f4. And black has to take that, right? So black takes it. The funny thing now is, let's do the count now. And you might say to yourself, what is the difference? Well, black is one move further away from getting back to the original position. So now black spends 5 moves, white has 6 moves, white to move, to draw, right? So that's amazing. Just totally counterintuitive. Just throw that pawn away, gives you that extra tempo. It's all you need. So it's all about the counting, exact number of moves, and using any other piece which is irrelevant as a decoy. Okay, so let's move on to the second position. This is a fairly historic game. We have got Maroczy versus Pillsbury, Vienna, 1898. One plays this tournament. And this I'm going to sort of think about in terms of corresponding squares. So we'll see how I do with that. This is the position where Maroczy makes a mistake and loses the game, and spend a moment thinking about it. Right, so if you've thought about it, the move played was a4, which is a mistake, because now we'll just follow the game continuation. King marches in, king d4, and maybe what Maroczy had anticipated was black taking the a pawn and then take the c-pawn, but there's a big problem with that. Pillsbury played the winning move, c3. So it doesn't matter what white does now. So let's say white tries to block, then black can threaten to advance the pawn again, and the only thing white can do is counterplay, but basically black is definitely going to win this race, right? So if we go back to the original position, which is here, a4 is the blunder. So what should white have done? Now the way I thought about this is in terms of corresponding squares, is that, I mean, it's not quite corresponding squares, but you'll get my point. So the first move here, the drawing move, is king to e4, and what I'm saying is c5 and e4 are corresponding squares, and now black has two continuations. He can either push his pawn or he can take the b pawn. Let's say he takes the b pawn, and then now what I'm saying is that now the corresponding squares are b5 and d4, and we continue this line. The only thing for black to do is to go and grab the a pawn. If he does that, then I'm calling that's the corresponding squares, right? So what happens is that if it continues, if black takes the a pawn, then in this variation, because white is in time, he will be able to grab black's b pawn. So that was one line, and if we just go back to the other sort of variation, the other b pawn to be pressed, let's push that. And then what I say there, the corresponding square number 2, because now white just ducks back and can take the b pawn at his leisure, because the important thing here is the a pawn, a3 pawn is covering the b4 square on all these lines, and you can see why such a blunder playing a3 to a4 was, because it actually gave king more flexibility, right? So I thought it's just a simple thing. You could actually sort of go through that in your mind, sort of corresponding squares. Where does the white king have to be in response to where the black king is, and work your way through to a draw in that case. Okay, so now so far we've seen two endgame positions where the position was a draw and white missed the drawing resource. Now we can see the other type of position which came out of the analysis I did, and that is where a drawn game turned into a loss because of a mistake. Now the principle we're going to look at, this outflanking or shouldering type of concept. So just let's have a look. One more move, king takes d5, and this is the key position. So Gary Kasparov is white. He played king takes d5. He's got an advantage here, obviously, but the position is still drawn. I mean, the white king is in a threatening position, and black has to defend accurately to get a draw. Okay, so once you've had a chance looking at it, let's have a look at what is going on here. White's obviously going to try and capture the b7 pawn. 1, 2, 3, move. Okay, because black just has to be able to 1, 2, 2, 3, see pawn at the same time, and it will be a draw. That's black has to keep in mind, targeting that pawn. Okay, so let's see what happened with the game continuation. King f6, which is a loss, because now Gary can play king to d6, and now it's too far. 1, 2. Whichever move black makes, king f5, too far. Because basically he had 1, 2, 3, 4, many squares, right? So just game continuation. Goes grab the pawn and it's over. Sort of taking the opposition was the mistake. Go back here. Yeah, show this. So you can see the king f4 is the correct move in this position. Let's see what happens. King f4. So now white is still 3 moves away from grabbing that pawn. And black is still 3 moves away from grabbing the pawn. And you can see the point here is that if white makes any effort to go for the b pawn, that leaves black this chance to sort of sneak around the back and grab the c pawn, which is the whole basis of the defense. So let's say that you can see that if white goes for the b pawn, then the c pawn drops. And we quickly go through king d6, king e4. So that's a draw. There's one other line to look at. Let's say white plays king d4 to keep the shouldering position in play. There's actually many many drawing lines in this position, because white's obviously moved 1 square away from being able to take the b pawn, which is the only way white is going to win. Yeah, black can play almost anything. In fact, given his follow at king g3, he can move way over there. Still safe. Still got time to get back. B pawn. So I thought that was quite interesting. So Nikolic, he had a drawn position and he lost the game by not taking the fact that he had to sort of outflank and run around behind the white pawn, or have the option of running around behind the white king, sorry, to grab the c pawn, because obviously once it's just rook pawns, and it doesn't matter, that's going to be draw. Okay, so that was just 3 positions of the many which popped up as I was doing the analysis, and I thought those ones were particularly instructive, these examples. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching.